afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to On the Couch with me, Martin Coqueliffe. My guest today, like all my guests, is a friend of mine, Miss Penny Hayward. Good afternoon, Penny.
Hi, Martin. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. Penny's a diploma holder with the Spiritualist National Union, and she's also a tutor at the world-renowned Arthur Findlay College. And I think, like most guests that we've had, all my watchers will be interested in finding your love of spiritualism is obvious, Penny, but what brought you into it all?
Well, I think it was because I was always asking questions of myself and out into the universe. Why am I here? What's the purpose? What's life about? And, when you have that burning desire and that will to want to understand more, you go in search. And at the time I was living in Melbourne, Australia, and I subsequently learned there was a spiritualist church in Melbourne, but I never found it. But I was finding myself going into a lot of secondhand bookshops and being drawn to old books on the occult, for example, and I was just searching really and going into what we call in Australia New Age bookshops and looking for anything that was going to try to help me to understand why I'm here, what is life about, what's the point of life if we just live and die and then there's nothing, and I think that in school where we were taught religious studies, I went to a Church of England school. When I did RE, none of it made sense to me. None of it really sort of resonated with me or gave me the answers that I was looking for. So I was just searching really, and in that search, it brought me to England. And not long after, I went to a medium. I'm condensing a very long story down. And the medium gave me such an evidential reading. I was compelled to go back, and that's when I started to. I basically said I wanted to know how it worked, and so that's what sort of led me into learning more about mediumship, which helped me learn more about myself. So that's quite a long story short, but it feeds in with perhaps some other things we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, and so like everybody, we get these feelings, these desires, these callings. Mm-hmm. So what did you do once you realized there was something called mediumship? What did you do to help you to progress along that pathway?
Well, as I say, I had gone back to this medium, and I really didn't know why I was going back, actually, because of that calling, that urge. And so when she was giving me a reading for the second time, it wasn't as smooth flowing as the first time. And it was because I didn't have a need for evidential communication the second time. In fact, I didn't even really know why I was there the second time. And I think the spirit world sometimes are very clever and engineer things in a way that gets you to a point and then it's over to you. And so she had said to me, "Oh, you're not here for an evidential reading, are you?" And I said, before I could think, I just said, "I don't know why I'm here. I just want to know how it works." And then she started to look at me a bit differently and started to say, "Well, actually, you have the ability to do what I do." And she gave me a different type of reading. And I was like, "Do I?" And when I look back, the funny thing is, Martin, I used to be aware of a spirit person walking through my house, and I just thought that was normal. And I used to have all kinds of experiences when I was in Australia that are of a mediumistic nature, and I just thought it was all normal. I didn't really, but I was looking for these answers, but not getting them, and I wasn't being drawn to anything that was giving me what I really needed to know. So when I was with this medium, and she said I had the abilities and I should go to one of her workshops. I did. And so the way it started for me was not in a home circle, but by going to this lady's workshop. And I just felt like my soul was being fed. I found it marvelous and wonderful. And it's like, oh, this is what I've been looking for, type of a feeling. And so then the next time she did, I couldn't wait for her to do another workshop. And then as it turned out, she was doing some of her workshops from another medium's studio. So I was going to that studio and opened up to other mediums and other types of mediumship and workshops. And the next thing I know, I was going to 2 different development groups a week. I then met more people, and one of those people that I met was running a home circle. So then I joined a home circle. Then I was introduced to spiritualist churches. So I was going to some of the open circles at the churches because it was very difficult to get into a closed circle. And the next thing I knew, I was sort of going to weekend workshops. Then I got introduced to the Arthur Findlay College. So then I was going to the Arthur Findlay College. So I must have spent an absolute fortune going to all these different workshops and the college and development groups, and it just sort of went like that. So I did a lot of different things, but it all happened in a very organic way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And what surprises me is, I mean, you mentioned it there, how much money you've spent on developing. And although I didn't go to the Arthur Findlay College much, people don't realize just how much money members of the SNU, you know, that hold their awards, don't think of how much money we've spent.
Yeah.
You know, as much as other people would spend on a university education, you know. So
absolutely.
I think sometimes it comes up when they say, oh, you shouldn't be charging. I think, well, you know, I've spent nearly, I think it's between £7,000 and £8,000 to be, you know, to where I am now within the union as a minister, with all the courses, the education, and people just don't realize that we can't do it all for free. You have to make some of that money back.
Absolutely. And as you know, we both volunteer for the union. So we do a lot of work that's voluntary, and people don't realize that as well. So, you know, I think it's good to have that balance where you do things on a voluntary basis to help and to help others. But but you've got to pay for your journey, your education and that kind of thing.
So you did all this education, and you said you were visiting spiritualist churches. When did you serve your first church, and did it go well?
Wow. Well, it's a funny story if I can tell you the lead up to that, because I was going to these development groups and workshops and so on and so forth, and I was going to the Arthur Findlay College open weeks as well as their courses, and I'd always go to a medium I'd never been to before. So I knew nothing about them and they knew nothing about me. And from my very first reading at the college, I got told that I would work in public and I would work at the college and I would do all these fantastic things. And I thought, no, it's not for me. I'm not doing that. No. And so I thought, well, they're just all a little bit crazy, you know. And anyway, so then over the course of a number of years, and it must have been at least 5 to 10 years, I kept getting told this. And so I basically said I got told in a reading, the spirit world's ready to work with you. You're going to work in public, so on and so forth. And I thought, no, I'm so not going to do that. So on my drive home from the college, I was saying, if, you know, talking to the spirit world, if you all think I'm going to do that, it's not going to happen. You make it happen. And do you know what happened? Two or 3 days later, I got a phone call from Hullbridge Spiritualist Church. Never heard of it before in my entire life. They rang me up and said, the medium on Sunday is cancelled. Can you do the service? And I was in shock, and I just went, no. And anyway, and I'm just thinking, what's happening here? I don't understand this, because I'd got told that on the Monday at the college open week, and then got called up on the Friday to do a Sunday service. And I just said, I'm not going to make it happen. You lot do it. Well, I then had to hire a car to get there, because I didn't have a car at the time, and it was quite a long way for me. And so what actually happened was I said no at first, and I went back to my voluntary job, which was in a hospice at the time, and I sat down at the desk, and I heard this voice say, "We told you you'd be tested." And, you know, I got this feeling come over me like I'd been a really naughty person. You know, when you're a little kid and you get told off by an adult, and you think, ooh, you know, I'm in trouble now. It was that kind of feeling. So I thought, oh my God. So I sent this thought out, okay, I'll call them back, and if they haven't got a medium, I'll do it. And I was thinking they'll have found someone, I'll be off the hook. And I called back. You would know as a working medium that if the church can't find a medium, they just keep calling mediums until they get someone to say yes.
Yeah.
So it must have been about 2 hours later that I called back, and I said, oh, you rang me earlier. Have you found a medium for Sunday? And they said, no, I can't find anybody. And I was in shock horror by that time. So I said, well, I can do it, but I've never done it on my own before. And the truth was, I'd never done a whole service before. I'd been practicing on platform. I'd seen services done, but I'd never been taken out by anybody. I was never under anybody's wing. And so I was kind of launched full force into doing a Sunday service. And well, I was so nervous. I was hyperventilating from Friday to Sunday. I think I must have spent most of my time in the bathroom for the weekend. I couldn't eat. I was so nervous. And I thought, why am I doing this? I really don't want to be doing this. And of course, when I had that feeling of being told, we told you you'd be tested, I remembered that reading and how I drove home saying, I'm not going to make it happen. You lot make it happen. And they had. Yeah. And so I was like, I guess I'm meant to be doing this then. So I turned up. I was dry in the mouth because I was so nervous. My knees must have been knocking together. And I said a prayer when I was asked to do a prayer. And then the whole time I'm thinking, oh my God, why am I doing this? Then somebody got up to do a reading, and they took it from, I think it was Chicken Soup for the Soul, they took the reading from. And then I had to stand up and do the address. And so I just took inspiration from the reading that was given. And I think I did about 10 or 15 minutes and sat down. And then I was really worried because, of course, with evidential mediumship, you can't prepare that. You have to stand up and give what you get, sort of thing. So I stood up and I got a contact, and it was placed and it was understood. So I thought, okay, I'll keep going. And so I served until I had to finish. And I sat down, and I must have slumped down in the chair. And I thought, I'm never doing this again. I'm never, ever putting myself through this. It's too stressful. I'm never doing it again. And then the chairperson said, and Penny, would you close in prayer? And I was like, so I had to stand up and do the closing prayer. And afterwards, I was thinking, no, this was terrible. This was a terrible idea. They'll never have me back. I'm never doing this again. And there was a little crowd that formed around the table, and people that got a message were thanking me. People who didn't get a message were saying thanks for the lovely address. And the medium secretary came up between them all and put the diary in front of me and said, "Will you serve our church next year?" and I was like, okay. So that was in about 2010, I think it was, May 2010. And I still serve that church because it was my very first church that I ever served. And I always serve it in May because it feels like a tradition now, because of that's how I started. And so I have a soft spot for that place, because I really didn't think I'd do another service after that. And then as it happened, they then told another spiritualist church. That spiritualist church told another church. And the next thing I knew, I was getting called up and asked to serve all different churches, all through word of mouth. So my journey maybe is different to what I've heard other people's journey, because from what I heard, a lot of people were sort of taken out and taken under the wing of someone, and they were allowed to just do the address, or they were allowed to just do one contact. Yeah. And so it sort of happened in a way that was perhaps a bit different to other people. And I don't regret it, but looking back, but at the time, I don't know how I got through those nerves. I just don't know how I survived. And but what's wonderful about serving those churches is that it helped me get my confidence to stand up and in front of people. It helped me become a bit more confident in myself. And so it's not just doing the mediumship. This is something I've mentioned before. I really feel that my mediumistic journey has helped me develop as an individual as well.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah. Now, usually I have lots of interview questions, but you said to me that you'd like to give me a subject to talk about, and you've called it "There's No Royal Road." So even I'm intrigued now, because I've no idea what you're going to say. So that's how we're going to open this bit, as "There's no royal road."
There is no royal road. So this sentence, or this statement, comes out of a book called Practical Occultism by J.J. Morse. And I read the book a few months ago, and this phrase is in there a few times. And if anybody's heard of the book, and actually if anybody's never heard of the book, I highly recommend it. And it's actually it's actually a book that is all trance conversation, if you like. And so, or lectures, trance lectures that are basically put into a book. But it doesn't feel like you're reading lectures. It feels like you're listening to a really interesting conversation. And even though it was written in the 1800s, it's easy to read and understand even today. It's not an oldie worldy English sort of book. And throughout it, there's a lot of wisdom in there and a lot of philosophy, but there's this statement, there is no royal road. And it stuck with me, and it was used in a couple of different ways, but it talks about how your spiritual journey, no matter who you are, is your path, is your journey. And it particularly references the fact that there's no shortcuts. There's no circumnavigating. There's no getting from A to Z without doing B, C, D, E, F, you know. So it talks about how a lot of people, it talks about human nature, and it talks about the spiritual path and the spiritual journey and the spiritual unfoldment. And I find this very interesting because I've been observing people's human nature and their spirituality, and how aligned they are. And sometimes people's human nature isn't always expressed in their spirituality, and vice versa, you know, because you can meet people that aren't spiritualists, that aren't mediums, and they can be very wise, very spiritual, very philosophical, but that doesn't mean that they're not spiritual, does it? Or they don't have to be a medium to be spiritual. They don't have to be a spiritualist to be spiritual. And I think on reflection, I like this saying, there is no royal road. And I think it's worth using and utilizing in the development of mediumship. Because I think that sometimes, if I look back on my own journey, when I was going to a lot of workshops and development groups, and you know, you usually get asked, and tell us a bit about you, tell us a bit about your journey. And people, you know, particularly in my early days, people would be saying, well, I've been developing for 25 years, or, you know, I've been developing for 5 years. And I'd be thinking, I've been here twice. And feeling inferior, feeling like I'm not worthy, you know, and maybe that says something about me at the time. But I think when you're developing, you kind of compare yourself. People start comparing, oh, they've done it for 25 years, I must look up to that. Or they've only done it for that long, they can't be that good. And I just think that's a bit of collywobble, because, you know, I've come across people that haven't developed for a long period of time, but they've been excellent. They've given me an excellent reading in our training, in our development. It's very natural. And then there have been ones that have developed for 25 years and it's been okay, you know. And so I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying I think that it's very easy to sort of make presumptions for yourself and also others on whether it's the right way, whether they've developed with the right tutor, whether they've done it for long enough, and all these kinds of things. And don't get me wrong, we do need development. We do need to understand our craft. We do need to understand the history of our craft. We need to understand how it works for ourselves. There's a lot we have to learn, that is for sure. So don't get me wrong there. But I love this saying, there is no royal road, because it really doesn't matter where you're from, Martin, what your background is. Your path has been your path. It's not right for me, because my background wasn't the same as yours. So my development shouldn't be the same as yours. And I think we have to understand that in mediumship, even though we use a combination of the same faculties and those kinds of things, we need to develop our understanding of how it works for us. Because, you know, somebody might have a natural aptitude for automatic writing, but they think that they have to be on the platform.
Yeah.
And I think this is where perhaps sometimes we go wrong, we get lost on that journey. And, you know, thinking about our spiritual journey just as our spirituality as a human being on a broad topic, medium or not, whatever someone's path is, if they jump from one religion to another in their trying to understand who they are and what they truly believe, so be it. You know, I've met people that have been brought up Methodist, turned Catholic, gone Protestant, you know, all kinds of different things, looking through different religions until they ended up into spiritualism. And, you know, it's really important to recognize that you don't have to be a medium to be a spiritualist.
Yeah.
And it's really important to recognize that everybody's journey is individual. And I think that's what There Is No Royal Road emphasizes. And I think I'm going to start using it a lot more in my teaching and when I'm working with people, because we do, after a while, start to compare ourselves with, well, I've been doing it for 10 years, they've been doing it for 2 years, how come they're better than me? Or how come they're not as good as me? Or what's this and what's that? And, you know, I just don't think we have a right to judge whether someone's a good tutor or not, because at the end of the day, not one medium is the right medium for everybody. Not one teacher is the right teacher for everybody. Not everybody has the answers. And that comes up in the book about practical occultism, that nobody has all the answers. So how can you circumnavigate or shortcut or think that you know better? Because how can anybody know what it was like to be me when I was 5?
Yeah.
How can anybody know what it was like to be me when I was 20? You know, how can anybody know what my spiritual journey has been? Because for me, my spiritual journey started at the earliest memory I have of me looking out at the stars at night, wondering, why am I here? That's been the beginning of my spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of that journey in asking those questions and going through the process was a voice told me to move to England. And in that voice telling me to move to England, and I actually paid attention, which is probably the biggest miracle, brought me to England, to a place where spiritualism is everywhere by comparison to Australia.
Yeah.
And so it brought me to where I needed to be, because the books that I was reading were either over my head at the time and my understanding. And that's an important thing about the Royal Road. You have to go through evolutions and steps of understanding before you can appreciate the next thing. You know, and things are going to be over your head until you have enough experiences, or you meet the right teachers, or whatever it might be, to help you to get to the right level of understanding. And so it brought me into England, where I was then launched into all these opportunities to go to so many. I went to lots of different tutors, and I followed what felt right to me. And I said no to the things that I felt I needed to say no to, and I said yes to the things I felt I needed to do. And I think that's what was right for me. And if somebody else judges that, they can judge that, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. And I think this is where I love this saying, there is no royal road. So I would say to anybody out there is follow your path, follow what feels right to you. And if somebody tells you it's wrong, then why are they telling you it's wrong? Is it because it's not their belief? You know, if what you're doing is not harming anyone, and if what you're doing is helping you to understand you as a person, you as a spiritual being. I mean, another thing in that book is that the soul body is more real than the physical body. And I really like that, because we are already a soul, we're already a spirit, and this physical body gets left behind before anything else that we know of. So our soul body is on that journey, that spiritual journey, And as we're unfolding, our soul body is growing up, just like we grow up physically. Our soul body is absorbing and learning and growing, and it's on its path, it's on its journey. And when the soul body matures, it leaves the physical body behind to go on to the next phase, the next level of understanding, which is beyond what we understand right now in this world. And no, not one of us can cheat death. No one can. And so for some people, their spiritual journey might not really start until just before they pass away, and when they end up in the spirit world. That's their path, and it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just their path. It's no royal road.
Yeah, lovely. Which sadly brings us to the end of the interview, and I think you've answered this last question, but I ask to every interviewee that I've had, and that is, what advice would you give to someone coming into this way of life?
Well, I would say that you should never compare yourself to anybody else. And it's great to respect people. It's great to look up to people and to gain knowledge from other people. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from a lot of people, and I've learned some things of what not to do. And that's important too. So I think that my advice would be, don't compare yourself to other people. Follow what's right for you. Does it feel right to you? And to trust that you're on your path, you're on your journey, and allow it to unfold as it's meant to be for you.
Yeah, there's lots I agree with you there. Particularly, I remember when I started developing the similar pathway to yours. I didn't go to the Arthur Findlay College. I think I went once because I had to meet some criteria because I couldn't afford. I was a father bringing up 3 young children, But I used to listen to other mediums, and it's the worst thing you can do. I did this yesterday. I did this yesterday. Oh, I gave this. And you start thinking, no, I don't get that. And I think the best thing is, the advice you've given is just follow your own pathway, because it'll unfold. And the other part I agreed with is when you said, you take the bits you can use and you don't take the bits you can't use. I think that's important as well. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes we need to put things on a shelf as well, and just and just trust that there'll come a time when we'll revisit that and it might make a bit more sense. So I have when I was developing, I had a little shelf I kind of mentally put things on and thought, okay, well, I'm not so sure about that right now. So I'll put that on my mental, spiritual shelf and see what happens along the way. And more often than not, something that would come up further down the line, once I had more experience, once I had more understanding, and I'd go, I'm going to take that off the shelf and I'm going to say, that one belongs in the bin. And or that one I now understand and I'm going to explore more. So I think that's an important thing as well.
Yeah, I think that's the same with some of the books you read. You can pick one up one day and it's just flies over your head, and another day, when you've got a bit more experience, you pick it up and the book makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. Do you find that sometimes when you read a book, it's like a confirmation of all of what you've been learning and what you've been experiencing and what the spirit world's been telling you on a personal journey, and you read the book and you see it there? That's what happened with me with J.J. Morse's book, Practical Occultism. It was like it spoke to me as a confirmation.
It's a good book. I've read that book. I reviewed it as well a few weeks ago.
Oh, did you?
I think it's a book you can go back to time and time again, especially the second part, the Practical Occultism. You can keep going back to it.
Absolutely. No, it's a brilliant book. There's quite a few books that are worth keeping on the shelf.
Yeah.
Physically.
Penny, it's been a lovely interviewing this afternoon, and I hope, I wish you all the best on your spiritual journey, your continuing spiritual journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been on the couch with me, Martin Colclough, and my guest today was Penny Hayward. Penny, thank you.